Welcome back to the show. Many thanks for staying with us. Well, she's the overseer of the Doctor Citadel and founder of the Mama Francisca Foundation. Her name is Francisca, or Reverend Dr. Francisca Duncan-Williams. She's my special guest for today. She talks me through her passion of people empowerment, as well as what she has been up to over a decade of her divorce in this interview. Mama Francisca, you're welcome.
Thank you very much.
And thank you very much for allowing us into your home. How are you doing?
Everything is going very well. I'm doing wonderful by the grace of God.
We thank God. Now,
Thanks for having me.
Right. Generally, if you look at the cultural antecedents, it appears that men or women have not been put on the same pedestal with their male counterpart. Let me start by finding out from you what your assessment is of gender balance generally.
I believe that it's been something that has generated with our culture. If you even look at the girl child and the boy, growing up, the boy is asked to go to school. You go to school, learn. But the girl is said, oh, you know what? Very soon you are going to end up in the kitchen. But you see, what we need to realize is that God did not create it that way.
Okay.
You see, originally, right from the book of Genesis, if you look at chapter 1, reading from verses 26 through 28, you will see that God empowered both the male and the female. Okay. And so we got to realize that culture must not hold us down. There is so much that has been given to the female as well, and the female should be empowered.
Speaking of empowering females, recently there's been a very interesting sort of debate going on. It's actually generated into the pepper them movement and the sugar them movement. I'm not sure if you've heard about this.
Not really.
You haven't heard about it? Okay,
No,
I can tell you about them.
Okay.
So the Pepper Them Ministries is a group of young people who believe that over the years, women have been relegated to the background. Now, what we need to do, and this is their position, what we need to do is to hit the nail right on its head. Like, say it as it is, and let's begin to mirror the narrative. The things that you think that men think they are better at, let's put women there, So they have a message that's like, if you like, very sharp message. So they call themselves the Pepper Them Ministries.
Okay.
And along the line, there was this group that's also started by one of our colleagues, Fia Pokia, and it's called Sugar Them.
Okay.
Now, Sugar Them is like, instead of peppering the men, so to speak, and giving them the harsh words and telling them as it is, why don't you be nice to them so that they will put you
sugar
in
them.
the right, sugar them. So they said sugar them to pamper us. Okay. So why don't you sugar them so they can, put you in the place you're fighting to be? I don't know. I'm wondering what you think.
What I think about that, I believe that it's a matter of locating who you are, defining who you are, knowing who you are, because as I'm saying, every one of us have been given a purpose on earth. Okay. So I don't really have to look at what somebody is saying about me or what somebody thinks I can do or not do. I must do what I believe I have been called to do and what I have been born to do. And so, yes, we complement each other. God said it's not good for the man to be alone. So definitely we complement, the woman complements the man. And so I believe that is a co-authority. It's something that we do together. To pepper them or to sugar them, either way may not be the best. Okay. But let's work together. For example, if I want to lift something up, as a woman, my strength goes to a certain limit. Okay. But if there's a man there, that man can lift it higher than I can.
That's where the pepper them will come at you, and they'll say that well, women can equally have the strength to lift things up.
Yes, we can, but you see, the thing is that let's face facts. I can lift something up, yes, but there are certain things I cannot lift up as a woman.
And there are certain things that men can do that women can do.
Exactly. Can a man go to the labor ward? I have seen men faint in the labor ward. I've heard of men run out of the labor ward. But here is the woman who goes there, faces it, comes out and carries the baby. You understand? So I think what we should realize is not really after the man or after the woman, or what the man can do or what the woman can do, but we must realize that we all have a purpose.
Okay, so we all have our place.
We have our places to play. Yes, we all have our places, we have our roles, we've all been called to do certain things.
But in the times or in a country or in a culture where some way somehow society seems to see men as superior, some way somehow.
Yes.
How do you just let it go? How do you not speak up and start these kinds of debates?
That is why we are telling the women that do not allow certain things, be it culture. I started by saying that I think it's a cultural thing. It starts right from the beginning. You see a home where there's a male child and a female child. The male child is encouraged to go as high as he can go. And then the female is told, oh, there are certain things that you cannot do as a woman. Very soon you're going to get married, have children, and all that you're doing goes, to the kitchen. But is that really what it is? No, it's not. Yesterday I was talking to a wonderful daughter of mine who is learning to be a pilot. Okay. And somewhere along the way she said, oh, I never thought, if I get married and my children, so these are some of the things we look at as women. But you can do whatever. I believe that by the time she's going to get married, have children, I'm sure she will put certain things in place. So we shouldn't limit ourselves. We shouldn't allow culture or your environment to say that the male child is better than the female child. No, or vice versa. I believe that God has empowered. God empowered the male child. God empowered the male. God empowered the female. But we got to realize that in everything we do, there must be order. There must be some kind of sanity, you understand, in what we are doing. So, for example, if you're in the home, it's the man, the husband is the head of the home. Okay. So you don't get up to say because you are the female and you earn more money than the man, you're more educated and stuff like that. So you are taking over everything. There must be the roles played properly. And once we understand that, I believe it's going to bring a lot of peace to homes, to society, and the world at large. And perhaps once we understand that from what you're saying, then such movements like the pepper them and the sugar them may not really be necessary. I think the pepper them and the sugar them can come together and find a common ground, to work together, because, hey, as we're sitting here right now, I'm enjoying what we're doing. I'm loving the way you're asking the questions. I don't know whether you're enjoying my answers, but you see, we're working together. This is it. It's not a matter of, somebody doing something better than the other. We are making this thing work. So the men and the women should come together and make it work, Okay. If I were to ask you to choose between sugar them and pepper them, which one will you choose? I would choose both. I would tell them all to come together. Let's all come together and let's make the best. Because once we bring a demarcation, once we bring pepper them or sugar them, we are even going outside what we were born to be. So it's better we can work together. The whole thing is about two people working together, the male and the female coming together, working together. What do I know how to do that I can help you with? And what can you also help me with? For me, I believe that is where the whole thing is. So nobody should be intimidated by the strength of the other person. We complement each other. We complement each other. Let me finish the thing about the general gender issues by asking you whether or not you think women, as we speak now, and in the 21st century, women are well empowered enough, or you think that we are really taking this women empowerment a bit too far? No, I think we're doing fine. I believe that there's even more room for improvement. Okay. The reason being that I'm beginning to see women rising up to where they belong, you know. Before, women didn't go into certain things. I mean, like this lady I was talking about, she's going to piloting. And how many women would have been encouraged years ago? They would tell you, no, you can't do that. A woman can fly. A woman, your place is the home. But today we have women who are presidents. We have women in, you know, high positions, and they're doing fantastic work.
We have women who are pastors as well.
We have women who are pastors, yes.
And I'll come to that.
Yes,
but let me start the conversation about women in the church by asking what the biblical roles for women are and how different they are from those of men.
Yes, you see, in the church, if we do have a woman who is married to a man of God, then of course the man of God is the head. He is the pastor. Okay. And so you, the woman, you play, as I've already said, a complementary role. Now, you have to find out what you can do best to complement what God has called your husband to do. Okay. You see, the thing is that the wife complements the husband. The wife makes the ministry of the husband successful. Okay. Not necessarily becoming a women's leader or a macro leader, stuff like that. But you can find your role. You know, maybe you have some gifts. You have some knowledge that you can impact into the lives of people.
I heard somewhere though that women were not supposed to be pastors or were not supposed to be leaders of the church, for example. And so and that's why I was asking if there is any biblical reasoning that you can refer us to.
That whole thing has come from when Paul said women should be quiet in the church. And you see, that thing was a contextual message. Paul was actually talking to the people of Corinth. And it was all because, you know, according to their cultural setting, the women sat differently from the men. And so the wives would be at the back and be shouting to their husbands, hey, John, what is that man saying?
And maybe to their children as well.
You know, so with all that confusion in the church, Paul said, look, women, just be quiet in the church. When you go home, you can ask all the questions you want to ask. But that wasn't a general thing to all women.
To say that women cannot be in leadership positions.
To say women cannot be in leadership. That's why I started by citing the woman who is married to a pastor. Okay. Then we also have women who are not married to pastors, but have a calling. You know, if we even look at the ministry of Jesus, you'll see that whilst Jesus was on earth, women were around him. Women gave of their substance. Women were the first to be at the tomb. A woman was the first witness, you know. So we see women like even, what's her name? This woman in Judges, Deborah. She was a prime minister of a nation. You know, and people came to her for advice. So women throughout the Bible have been used in leadership position as well as supportive roles. Okay. So, you know, the woman should know which role she plays, whether she's in a leadership role or in a supportive role. And the men should, you know, accept what God has done. If you look at certain great men of God today, if I mention people like Bishop Oyedepo, if I mention people like Benny Hinn, Yonggi Cho, who has, you know, about the largest church in you know, in the world, these people were all supported by women. Benny Hinn spoke about women who stayed behind and prayed and supported him. You know, today we see a lot of, let's come back home, we see a lot of men of God being strongly supported by their wives.
By their wives.
Yes.
In the case where the woman is the pastor or the woman is the one with the calling.
Yes.
What is the place of the man?
I believe that the man should understand who his wife is. you know, so that if your wife is the one who has the place of the calling, and the two of us are one, so why can't you help the woman to fulfill her calling?
Right.
You know, I do know a few of my friends, female, who had the calling, but their husbands are supporting them, and it's beautiful. Again, as I'm saying, it's all about us working together, you know. So whatever I can do as a man to support my wife, after all, she's your glory. You know, people look at her and say, this is Mrs., you know, and she carries your name.
Right.
So whoever she is and how far she goes is not even just about herself.
Just about herself. Well, speaking of that, I would like to come and talk about Dr. Citadel.
Okay.
And how it was for you putting it together. But speaking of husbands and wives who have supported their husbands in ministry, and speaking of great men of God in this country, that brings us to, for example, your ex-husband. What would you say was your role in supporting his ministry, which is one of the biggest ministries right now in this country, Action Faith Ministries?
I was supporting with the women's ministry. Yes, the Women in Action.
Okay.
Yes, that was my role. I was also in the administration, helping to put things in place.
Okay.
Yes. And now that I have my own place by the grace of God, here I'm seen as the leader in this place.
Okay.
They call me their mother and their father.
and how are you doing the mother and the father at the same time?
It's beautiful, but of course, you know, I do have other men and women of God who also come in to help support the work I'm doing. So we all work together, and here it's a baby church. We just started. In fact, this month we're going to celebrate our first year.
Wow!
So we are just 1 year old here, but we're still doing the work that God called us to do. And for me, it's just because God spoke to me personally and said, "You have not finished the work I called you to do. You've got to continue with it," because initially, I am a member also of SEM, Charismatic Evangelistic Ministry.
Before you got married earlier, or before?
No, you know.
Before you started this
Before
church?
I started this one.
Okay.
So, and I'm still a member. But here, I'm also fulfilling the role that God has called me to do. Because it's not just a matter of, you know, going to church and then that's it. But God called me, and I'm to empower people. I'm to empower women. You know, I'm to help. I do a lot with ministers as well. On Tuesdays, we have what is called the Mama Francisca Pastors Network. And we have pastors, leaders, CEOs of companies who come in here, and we do learn how to make the work that God has given to us successful.
Okay, let me talk about the Doxa Citadel. But what's in the name?
The name Doxa is actually a Greek word for glory.
Okay.
Yes, and then Citadel, you can see how cute the place is. So we call it a home. Okay. So you can call it, in other words, glory house. You know, we say you come here in the glory of the Lord. So that's what Doxa Citadel is all about.
Citadel.
It's a home of you know, manifesting the glory of God. And we believe that people who come into the presence of God are changed, you know, made better and all that. So that's Doxa Citadel. My calling has not been today. Okay. My calling has been many, many years ago. In fact, it actually started with my mother in 1972, when my mother opened up her home for the United Church at Teshunungwa to start in our home. Wow. So I started there, you know, teaching Sunday school, doing interpretation, and then from there got married to a man of God, and then, you know, went to England for some time, and then after that came back and was at SEM. Okay. But then over the years, we are talking of over 30 years of empowerment and endowment. So I just
you have it in you.
I have it in me, and not only that, but we are empowered to empower others. Because anyone who is empowered but has no succession plan is killing her vision. You know, but we must have the younger generation that we can impact to also continue with the work that we started, you know, so you pass it on. You know, you teach the younger generation, and that's just what I'm doing here. Even though we have some of the older people also coming, but my focus now is also building the younger generation. You know, the ones who are saying they have nowhere to turn to. They have nobody because, you know, nobody is reaching out to them. They don't have the big churches. They don't have all the money. They don't have the cars. They don't have the big tithes. They don't have all that. This is my passion. Okay. If you know, about 95% of all charismatic pastors ate in my kitchen. You know, yes, you are talking of the Eastwoods, Anchors, you know, you are talking.
I mean, they ate in your kitchen when you were married to a man of God.
Yes,
okay,
yes,
so you
yes.
have that
yes, so I fed them, Ampia coffee, all of them, my meat pies and all that, you know. So I'm still feeding.
You're still feeding.
If we can put it that way. Okay. The feeding continues.
Very, very well. And you've just mentioned, you know, your journey.
Yes.
From your mother opening up her house, and then you were interpreting the word of God. I mean, like from Ga to English, or English to Ga?
From English to Ga.
To Ga.
Yes, okay. Because you know, we are Gans. My mother from Osu, so mine is Ga.
Right. So
and then even the tree, I do my best.
Right. So from there, then you from that church, you got married to a man of God, and I'm sure it was a blissful moment. In the late 2000s, you went through a very difficult moment of your life, and I'm sure that that is also a part of the inspiration with which you reach out to people. We've heard the part, and I, as a media person, have heard a part of your ex-husband's story. Recently, we saw Uncle Ebu White, you know, portray him in one of his plays. I'm wondering, would you like to share your part of the story with us?
Everybody goes through challenges in life. I always say one thing, that if there's no test, there's no testing. If there's no testing, there is no reward. Okay. You cannot go from class 1 to class 2. Everybody goes through a test. I would rather want people to see what God is doing in my life. Okay, I haven't seen the movie, and I am doing what God has called me to do. Right. I believe strongly that God has a purpose for my life. You know, we do what God wants us to do, and that's just exactly what I'm doing. Right. You know, so we thank God for everything. Who I am today is because I was married to Archbishop Duncan-Williams. I wasn't a preacher, but this man put some fire in me. And today, whoever I am, by the grace of God, there is no one person I can point but him to say that he helped me walk this road. I wasn't a woman of God when I was married to him, but because I was married to him, today, by the grace of God, all our children are in ministry, they are doing great. And we thank God. I thank God for his life. You should have known me when I wasn't married to a man of God. I was so quiet. In fact, the first time my brother heard me speak, he was like, wow, now you know how to talk. So I thank God for his life. I believe that I have also been a blessing to him as much as he has also been a blessing to me. Right. So yes, again, I'm coming back to my first point. It's a complementary thing. Okay. Together we fought. Together we prayed. Together we built. Action, I was there in the foundation. You should have seen us in our Chalewati and in the mud. And the prayer and the things. Action is not what it is today. Action started from a point. So we did it together. I don't know what God will do tomorrow. I never know. I mean, God has plans for all of us. So I'm really open to what plan God has for my life. Okay. He's moved on with his life, and I'm just again telling you that I am doing what God has called me to do. Life moves on, and I think that is where we need to take it from. Right. That God has a purpose and a plan for each person. Right. And so we thank God for all. There's a song that says, through it all, if I hadn't been through these problems, I wouldn't know that God could solve them. Wow. So we thank God.
Wow. Well, let me just continue and wrap up. I was just having a conversation with Mama Francisca. She's the overseer of the Doxa Citadel. She's also the founder of the Mama Francisca Foundation. We're not supposed to be personal in this conversation, actually, but you know, she's managed a few, to share a few with us. Well, let's finish with Doxa Citadel. Has it been difficult for you, especially because you are a woman? Starting what we see a lot of men do, churches. We usually see a lot of men running churches, and I mean, I'm just wondering, how has it been for you running it?
I think for me, I'm not starting a church. I think I'm just continuing with what I've been doing the past 30 to 40 years. Okay. You understand? So I'm not a starter. And I believe that for me, everything is running very smoothly because I've acquired a lot of knowledge over the years, and I'm applying that knowledge. I also, by the grace of God, do have the support of a lot of men and women of God. And so together we're all doing this work that God has called us to do. So it's beautiful. I'm enjoying it. I'm loving it. We have something we say here, there is a building that is new, but the people here are not new.
So yes. These are people who knew you already, or people who...
No, some of them didn't, some did. Okay. But majority of them are people who have come from the community, people that have picked up from around the environment, and I'm just blessing them. I believe that the next generation of Dagewan Mills is Sudanaba, Ampia Kofi's, Steve Menson's, Stanley Menson's, are all here, and I'm bringing them up. Are
you in touch with your children?
Yes, I am.
Some of them are into ministry, like you said. Some of them are singers.
All my children are into ministry.
Do they come to your church sometimes?
Yes, they come sometimes. Yes.
Let me finish this conversation by talking about some few trending issues since we're talking about women empowerment. Recently, there's been a story that we've covered here at JoyNews on the Exhusband. We've called it the Exhusband sex scandal. I'm not sure you followed it, but I think you have followed it.
Kind of.
Right. And it's about teachers asking for sexual favors from girls in their classrooms. And I mean, if I remove my journalistic hat, I get very worried because I'm a young woman, and sometimes you could say that these are some of the things that you've gone through as a young woman, or you've seen as a young woman. I'm wondering and you being a leader of a church, I'm sure you've dealt with some of these issues over and over again. What are your thoughts on what is happening, and how do you think that really as a country we can begin to deal with some of these issues?
I believe that knowledge is so important. You see, one of the things that I am praying that Ghana will do more is to give knowledge. Knowledge is power. You know, some of these young ladies are very vulnerable because they might not have any idea of what their rights are. You know, but you go abroad and a 5-year-old girl knows her right. You know, and so you.
That's my conversation there with Reverend Dr. Francisca Duncan-Williams. You can look out for the fuller version of it on JoyNews special.